On the second segment on In Your Interest, we're focusing on a developing story from Lucknow that has sent shockwaves through Uttar Pradesh's political and social and, well, fitness circles as well. Prateek Yadav, the younger son of the late Samajwadi patriarch Mulayam Singh Yadav and half-brother of SP chief Akhilesh Yadav, passed away suddenly today. According to reports, Prateek was brought to the civil hospital early this morning. Doctors declared him dead on arrival. His wife Aparna Yadav was in Assam at the time of the incident. And while the initial shock of his death prevails, the post-mortem report has introduced significant medical findings. The official cause of death is listed as cardiac arrest, triggered by a massive pulmonary thromboembolism. Essentially, a blood clot blocked the blood flow to his lungs, a condition that can be fatal if not treated instantly. And what has caught the attention of the investigators and the public alike is the mention of 6 ante-mortem injuries found on his body, specifically lungs and arms. And while the report focuses on the internal collapse, the presence of these contusions and injuries sustained before death has led the medical team to preserve his heart for further examination. Additionally, his viscera have been preserved for chemical analysis to rule out any external factors. A lot of questions doing the rounds. And Pratik Yadav was a man who chose a path distinctly different from the high-octane political life of his father and the family and the brother. While the Yadav family name is synonymous with the corridors of power and politics in Lucknow and the national capital, Pratik focused his energy on business, on professional bodybuilding, and a deep-seated passion for animal welfare. He was a Formula One enthusiast as well, and an MBA graduate from the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom. He was perhaps best known to the public for his fitness journey and his dedicated work with Jeev Ashraya Foundation, an NGO he ran to rescue stray dogs. This tragedy comes after a year of personal and public ups and downs for Pratik. Only last year, he had filed a high-profile complaint regarding a 4 crore rupee extortion attempt. Furthermore, his personal life was under the scanner in January 2026 this year when a social media post hinted at a possible divorce from Aparna Yadav. And while her family maintained that the account was hacked and that the couple was later seen together in public, the sequence of events over the last 12 months paints a picture of a man dealing with significant stress despite his public persona of physical and peak fitness. Take a look at this. The big questions that we're trying to understand. What is the specific nature of the 6 ante-mortem injuries found on Pratik Yadav's body? And could they be linked to the physical distress that led to the cardiac arrest? With the viscera and the samples now under examination, when can the family and the public expect clearer answers from the final report? Let's look at the health aspect of it all, the fitness, the possibility of steroids, the stress, could be drugs. Well, nobody knows at this point in time. Viscera has been kept for later examination. Dr. Navneet Sood, Associate Director, Pulmonary, Dharamshala Hospital, with us on the broadcast. And Dr. Vivek Gupta, Professor, Cardiology, Apollo Hospital, with us on the broadcast as well. Dr. Navneet, can pulmonary embolism strike like this so suddenly? Could this have been prevented? If you have been able to go through the post-mortem report, the 6 contusions, some sort of blood clots or some sort of blood rupture signs and, those kind of symbols that you can see on his forearm, under the elbow, on the chest. What does all of this essentially suggest? Is there another way around to this mystery with Pratik Yadav? Dr. Sood, can you hear us? Dr. Sood, you'll have to unmute yourself. My apologies.
Yeah, sorry. So whether these contusions which are noted in the various areas are linked to it or not is a different matter altogether. But pulmonary embolism is a disease which will process like this only. So we have seen many patients. So one of the very few causes of sudden death is pulmonary embolism. Specifically in pulmonary medicine, one very common is that cardiac syndrome, acute coronary syndrome, the cardiologist will be, that is a very common sort of thing. In the lung point of view, only 2 or 3 diseases are such that they will cause sudden death. So one of them is a pulmonary embolism. Mostly we see this pulmonary thromboembolism in patients who are basically bedbound or who have a tendency. There are certain conditions in which they have a tendency for clotting, more clotting than maybe others. So there are certain congenital conditions also. there is certain deficiencies of factors which lead to thinning of the bloods, which is normally present in all the cases. So those are the cases where thromboembolism or embolism, so to say, can occur, and then clot travels to the lungs, and if that is blocked, then there is a sudden fall in oxygen levels and everything else,
Okay.
and there is a sudden desaturation.
All right, all right. Dr. Gupta, do you concur with what Dr. Sood here is, telling us? Look at the circumstances. Of course, the police will do a better job in understanding how did he sustain those multiple injuries, the anti-mortem contusions, 6 of them, 6 different injuries, and who was with him in those final 24 fatal hours. Why was a post-mortem necessary if the death was this straightforward? And just like Dr. Sood was telling us, it usually occurs in, patients who are more bed-lying. But this guy, he was absolutely fit. He was, an epitome of bodybuilding when it came to that.
Yes, I'm Dr. Vivek Gupta, cardiologist in Delhi Apollo, and we keep seeing such patients and such deaths, mostly happening at home. You see, one of the most common cause of sudden cardiac death or sudden death is, of course, we know cardiac arrest, which is because of the heart attack, and there's a clot which forms in the coronary arteries. And this is most common preceded by chest pain. But in pulmonary embolism, let me explain you a little better for the interest of the audience. What happens is there is a clot, or there is a clot means thrombus. That means the blood has frozen to a clot.
Yeah.
The clot travels from the deep veins from the legs. It travels from the inferior vena cava, goes into the right atrium. Right atrium is the right part of the heart. Normally from the right atrium, it goes to right ventricle, and from right ventricle, it goes to the pulmonary artery, which is supplying, the blood is going to the lungs. These arteries are not more than 2.5 or 1.5 or 2 centimeters in diameter, or even less, depending upon the pulmonary trunk, and then they bifurcate. When the clot is large enough that it just gets dislodged in one of the 2 arteries or maybe the pulmonary trunk, there's a sudden collapse because there is no flow to the lungs. There is an absolute collapse. There's a shock which is known as cardiogenic, or there's a lung attack or something like that. And the patient cannot be revived at all if the patient is at home. Even if in the hospital also, if the clot is large enough, we cannot get them revived. Otherwise, what we do, we go into the cardiac.
Do you think that there could be some foul play over here? Some foul play over here, Dr. Gupta?
Yeah, sorry?
Is there a possibility, is there room for some foul play to happen here in this case?
Yeah, this is a very difficult question to answer because normally he should not have any injury.
Yeah.
I think what I know from the report that he was already suffering from such lung condition.
Yeah, he was.
If he was suffering from that lung condition, he was not hospitalized. That means the whatever test they would have done would not be having a large thrombus. If there was large thrombus, that means the patient was discharged and kept on the home. And he must be on the medicine which is anticoagulant, and he must be recovering. Okay. Suddenly he goes to the hospital and dies there. And if there was no injury, of course, it would have been straight for another clot coming from the veins, another clot. Because if there's a pre-existing clot in the pulmonary artery, there can be another clot which comes from the legs and goes again and completely blocks the arteries, and the patient dies suddenly. This is massive pulmonary thromboembolism, and patient dies. He was actually, I want to make another point. He was a muscle builder.
Yeah.
He was doing a lot of exercises. He himself was a passion for this. I don't know whether, because there are people who are taking some steroids and some medicines.
I was just going to come to that. Anabolic steroids, and they can play their massive role in this case as well.
Because these medicines can cause hypercoagulability. Normally in a patient, as Dr. Sood has said, normally who's not on the bed, bedridden patient, it can happen even without hypercoagulable state. Who is otherwise walking, these things should not happen. And what actually I will personally tell you that there are a lot of medicines which are being taken for enhancing the muscle power, and they may causing hypercoagulable stage, and the clot forms and goes, and he was already suffering from that.
Yeah.
The question is, these patients normally when we Apollo Hospital Delhi or other places with Gangara, for example, we here what we do, we put a IVC filter, which is a filter in the inferior vena cava. That means the blood can go, but the large clot will be prevented from going to the heart. This is a preventive system which we always give in a patient before discharging. If the patient has already suffered from thromboembolism, which he was supposedly, so if he had a filter, he would have possibly survived this attack, this another pulmonary thromboembolism at all. Coming on to the injury part, this is something only the police can tell. But if there is some injury and the patient, there is something going or some fist and all, that normally does not lead to another pulmonary thromboembolism episode, it can lead to heart attacks because the stress leads to secretion and the clot formation in the coronary artery. But as such, pulmonary thromboembolism is not precipitated by any injury or any. But visceral examination, if that comes clean, then it will be showing that those injuries should not.
So it all boils down to the visceral examination and what that kind of report tells us. But, Dr. Sood, what are some warning signs that people often miss? I mean, Pratik Yadav, of course, the family is grieving right now and hearts and prayers go out to that grieving family. I don't want to paint a bad picture for the man just because he was rich, just because he was driving a Lamborghini. Not to say that, he was definitely, recreational drugs. But hey, let's talk about the warning signs that people often end up missing. Would you like to throw some light on that?
So I think since he was diagnosed with this pulmonary embolism, I assume wherever he has been diagnosed, he would have been told about the environmental risk factors, so to say, also say some drugs which can cause this thing, or some steroids which have been done. So even after that, if he has been consuming those sort of things, then, or he is not compliant with the anticoagulation which has been prescribed to him. And he has a tendency to have those clots. So as Dr. Gupta has told, one clot might have, some clots might have got anticoagulated. Maybe another clot, maybe even from the upper limb also, one of the clots might have then traveled again, and that might have not totally got anticoagulated, or he might not have been taking proper treatment for that. So warning signs, I think, are almost similar to what a cardiac arrest or heart attack or cardiac arrest, or basically cardiac arrest is a different thing. Right. Heart attack, chest pain, shortness of breath, these sort of things are there. But when it is a massive thromboembolism, it will be very sudden. It will not give you a lot of time.
I think that's the unfortunate bit here. There is a learning lesson, of course, over here. And it looks quite straightforward until it finally isn't. So a lot will depend on the viscera reports. Still a big question mark on those anti-mortem injuries. What happened before, this particular sudden collapse, and what happened in the last 24 hours. A young man who's known for his strength and bodybuilding suddenly dies. Of course, eyebrows are going to graze. And the truth is going to lie in the toxicology reports. I think we'll have to wait till that. Let's not try to paint a bad picture for a man who's, you've got that rich brat lifestyle and then a lot of things that come on with it. Dr. Gupta, I've completely run out of time here. Let's give forensic science, the time that it needs to come up with those reports and answers still to come out. With that, we're going to shut down this particular discussion. Many thanks, Dr. Gupta. Many thanks, Dr. Sood, for speaking to us here on News 9. Pratik Yadav's sudden death, a lot of questions that are now coming to the fore. But hey, let's wait for the viscera findings. Let's wait for the toxicology report to come out before we go into the nitty-gritties of what essentially happened. Was it a mysterious death or was it straightforward? All in all, unfortunate news for the Yadav family. Hearts and prayers to them at this point in time. That's all the time we have for you in this edition of In Your Interest. We're going to catch you again tomorrow. Many thanks for watching.
New Birla Opus exterior paint gives warranty up to 16 years. Who believes that? I believe. I do. I do. I do. I do.